Jo Palacios versus Rubiel Mosquera, otherwise known as Nexzilla. Now, this is an interesting matchup. Two young up-and-comers, and they are kind of the opposite when you think about it. Jo Palacios, he placed second at the Texas Pro. This is a show-winning version of Rubiel. Of course, it was a different lineup, so just because one guy placed first, one guy placed second, doesn't mean that Rubiel is winning this one. Now, why do I say that these guys are the opposite? Well, many people say if Jo Palacios, his legs were a little bit bigger, this guy would be Olympian. Top 3? Well, he's pretty good. He's pretty good, is what I mean. Now, you look at Rubiel, and yes, the opposite could be said about him. If his upper body got a little bit bigger, he would be very proportioned. Symmetry, proportion, everything, all that stuff counts when condition, muscle size is equal. But for goodness sakes, who would win this one? The guy with the bigger upper body or the guy with the bigger wheels? I would, for instance, give this pose to Jo Palacios. I think the upper body means a little bit more to me than the lower half. Condition plus for Jo Palacios. Now, there is something to be said about the camera angles. Is Joe really this big? Was Jordan Hutchinson really as big as he looked in those pictures? Maybe Jordan is bigger than we think he is because he was being outsized by Joe. So I'm excited to see Joe against some of the best. And weight is just, this is an illusion. I really don't think that Joe is that heavy compared to how big he looks. Or as Jay Cutler, here's the front lat spread. As Jay Cutler says, big. That's what he didn't want to be that big, he says. Front lat spread is kind of the same thing here. And of course, sizing will be an issue. The angle of the camera, way down low for the Texas. So it's hard to say, really. And Rubiel, he's bending at the knee here. He's kind of like what a horse does. They lock their hip out. We had a boss when I used to have a real job. The boss would come around every once in a while, and you knew when he locked out his hip, he'd lean on his hip, you knew he was going to be there for about 10 minutes. But if he didn't lock that hip in, you knew he was going to just walk away. So, just had to add that in there. Yeah, Jo Palacios winning from the front, I would suggest it's worth a debate, I think. Here's the side, much closer, in my opinion. You can see Jo Palacios, his upper and lower body, the proportions are pretty good. He has that hanging hamstring, you see. So from the front, proportions not as good as they are from the side. And the same thing could be said about Rubiel. Look at his upper body in this one. Nice separation. You can see his abs in there. Looks pretty good. Not opened up as much as Jo Palacios. So some people would just glance over and say, Joe's winning. I'd probably lean towards Rubiel, to be honest with you. Now here's the side tricep. Another pose for Rubiel. In my estimation, that is. Hey, if you're going to argue that Joe's winning this one because he has more aesthetics, hanging hamstring, nice proportions everywhere, big man's chest, condition too, nice tricep. I'm not going to disagree with you. But I am siding for the man. Just superior leg development. Calves, glutes sticking out there. And, Joe's no slouch in the lower half from the side, I can tell you that. But, few have the quad development, quad separation of Rubiel. And in the upper body, looks like the side chest not opened up as much as Joe. But look at the gears and the cogs, the guts, if you will, in this shot. The abs, chest, tricep itself. I like Rubiel's side tricep. So one could say it's a close contest heading into the back shots, which will undoubtedly go to Jo Palacios. Not only this rear lat spread, but I am sure the other pose as well. And it's more than just the imbalance. With all due respect to Rubiel, some of these young guys, they don't want to hear criticism. But that's the best thing. Criticize the physique with respect, not just go out there and say, oh, this guy's trash. As that's not the case. We only care about, well, me, myself, I'm only going to criticize somebody if I think that they really have a chance to make it. You know what I'm saying? Now, Jo Palacios, like I said, it's more than just the imbalance. It's the condition. This guy's shredded to the diced. That's kind of why I already made my decision on the next back shot. So unfortunately, for, using these two versions with the lighting that we have, which was awesome at the Texas, it looks like that Jo Palacios would defeat Rubiel Mosquera. Here's the back double. A better shot for Rubiel. I'll give him that. Is the condition any tighter? Well, no, it can't really be, unless he's flexing harder, which it could be. The lighting was kind of bad. A red background, really? That's not the best. It's basically one step up from what they do at the Toronto Pro, what they serve us at the Toronto Pro. Old spray tan background. They use spray tan, so the guys literally blend in with it. And, of course, the condition of Quint Beastwood has nothing to do with this comparison. Just basically comparing how it's much easier to see the bodybuilders. And now that I have these two versions here, I can say for sure Quint is bigger at the Texas, but is he that much bigger? Is it the camera angle way down low that distorts the size of these blokes? Could be. At least there was no screen behind them at the Toronto. But let's go back to the business at hand. Rubiel's back double, whole lot better than his rear lat. There is absolutely potential here to have a better pose than Jo Palacios, but he's going to need to tighten up that condition, widen out that lat spread. All the while, Joe, he's going to get tighter and he's going to get wider and all those things of that nature, I guess. Here's the abs and thigh. A pose that would go to Rubiel unless the condition was drastically different. And I don't think it's too much. I think Rubiel brings respectable condition for the size of him. I mean, those quads. I've seen those quads more separated than this, though. Still, you're probably gonna give this one to the big Neckzilla. Quadzilla. And Neckzilla? Quadzilla. Both. Here's the most muscular. And another example of how big Jo Palacios looks. And I'm not being disrespectful to Joe, saying, oh, he's not as big as he looks. That's foolish. He's huge. He was big next to Quint Beastwood, Quentin Uriah, and Jordan Hutchinson. I'm Hodgson. No N. Hutchinson. He has an N. They always take the N out. They give it to me. Hodgkinson, they call me. But that is a story for another day. I give the victory to Jo Palacios. Could he be a qualified bodybuilder for this year's Olympia? Absolutely. There is going to be bodybuilders that if you put Joe on that Olympia stage with them, he would beat them. But it is better, I guess. Unless he's going to compete again, qualify. Well, all the power to him. I'll support him on that. But I would be just as excited if he didn't compete until next year, then got qualified. Pad your account with politics. Pad it. Sometimes they won't give them the victory because they're a new guy. They're afraid what people will think. What would people think? But now that Joe has a lot of support, tick turds like me out on the internet, if there's enough of us tick turds, get behind one bodybuilder. So the main tick turd, Nick Strength and Power, he's the main one if he gets behind this guy. There's no telling how far Jo Palacios can go. Same thing with you, Neckzilla. Rubiel, we like you too. Have a great one, folks.